So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 2016 Edward Ross Lecture. It's really my pleasure to be here and to greet all of you, and in particular, this is something that's very close to my own heart. I feel like I have become close to Ed Ross's wife, Helene, who is here, sister-in-law, Joan Band, who is here, and many members of the Ross family and friends. This isn't just an institutional event, this is family, a Hamish event, if I may, and it is one that is therefore very close to my heart. So I want to start by thanking you very much, Helene and Joan, for continuing to support this lecture where we have the chance to honor Ed. Ed was, I think, in some regards, the quintessential Temple Law School person. He labored quietly, serving his clients with diligence and hard work and honor, and bringing to them the kind of service that we hope all of our graduates will offer to their clients. He was taken from us in 2008, way too soon, but I am really thrilled that we are able regularly to think about him, but annually to honor his memory through the Ross Lecture. And I am delighted that today the guest lecturer is one of our equally famous and successful alums, Marina Kats. And I'd like to welcome Alexandra Kats, her daughter, and John Medvekis, a friend of the family and a friend of ours, here to support Marina as well as the rest of us. To say that Marina has been a true friend to us is really an understatement. She has 2 degrees from Temple, and as she has said, 3 degrees, undergraduate law and from our L. She immigrated from Ukraine and put herself through school. And I have heard her say on more than one occasion something that I know to be true. She bleeds cherry and white. We are and have become a part of Marina's family. She currently serves the university. I'm delighted that she agreed to deliver this lecture, but it is consistent with what I know about Marina. When Temple calls, she says, yes, what is it that you need me to do? She is president of the President's Leadership Advisory Council and a member of the President's Advisory Board. As I said, she emigrated from Ukraine. She launched her own practice. She is the first Ukrainian-born immigrant to run for the U.S. Congress. And everything that she does well. I'm not going to try to list all of her accomplishments here. I couldn't do it, and I'd take too much of the time, but I do want to acknowledge one other Temple connection, that she has been inducted into the Temple League of Entrepreneurial Women for her success in launching her successful law firm. We did, in preparing for this, note one thing that, Marina, I didn't know about you. I was intrigued to learn that she holds a title to which very few of us, I suspect, can lay claim. She has been bestowed the title of Dame by the Ecumenical Hospitaller Order of the St. John Knights of Malta, which, may I point out to you, is the oldest existing knightly order in the world, having been founded during the Crusades in 1048. The Crusades. Marina, we are truly impressed. I know that as lawyers we are used to a great deal of zealous advocacy, but let me say that we are really happy that you picked up the pen and not the sword. But what I think Marina does best and most successfully is practice law on the one hand and be devoted to her family on the other. And I know that if on any minute she had to pick one, it would really be difficult. I know she'd go with family, though. I have followed the drive of her, her daughter Alexandra shaking her head. I have watched you, Alexandra, grow up, and Kelsey, and I think that is a real testament to the affection that this institution has for Marina and that she has sent back to us. We are really friends, just like the Rosses and the Bands and your extended family. This is a room full of people that, on a personal level, I want to say how much it means to me to have your continued presence as part of the law school family. So I am delighted to introduce not just our 3 Temple alum and our Ross lecturer, but my friend, Marina Kats.
Well, there's not much I can say after this wonderful introduction. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Ross family, for sponsoring this lecture. What I found out from Helena, that her family came from Ukraine, Kiev, the same city I was born. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my history and tell you that I am truly temple-made. I came to the United States in 1979. I came from the former Soviet Union. I grew up there. And until I turned 14, I thought it was a pretty good place to be. And then when you turn 14, you realize that you do have a very protective system where you have a free healthcare, you have free education, but you're not free yourself. And I'm going to paraphrase Benjamin Franklin, but people who are willing to give up a little bit of their freedom for a little bit of security deserve neither. And that's really the motto that I am willing to live with, and that's the motto that Ed Ross lived with. He was an amazing, amazing man. I know I digress a little bit from my history, but I just want to talk for a few minutes about us as lawyers and why we do what we do. And I think the most important thing and what near and dear to all of our hearts is to make sure that we as a lawyer preserve everybody's individual freedoms. That's a crucial thing. So when I turned 14 or 15 and I realized that Soviet Union and socialism system is not where I want to be, I start persuading my parents to leave. That's not an easy task. Because when you grew up under a certain system and you don't speak the language, and changes are always very difficult, eventually I said, listen, sooner or later I'm going to be 18 and I'll be able to leave the country. So you have to either leave or I am leaving when I turn 18 and I am going to Israel. The reason why I wanted to go to Israel because I truly believe that this is one country in Middle East that's making sure that individual freedoms are preserved. Well, my parents said, okay, we're going to make a deal with you. If you go with us, we will immigrate to America, which is obviously where I wanted to be also, so we decided that's what we're going to do. We left Soviet Union before I turned 18, and I actually turned 18 in refugee camps. We lived in Italy for about 6 months and waited for our turn and proper visas to come to the United States. And eventually, the dream came true, and we came to the United States. We were picked up at JFK Airport by Jewish Family Services bus. And us and 3 other families were taken to Philadelphia. Now, 1979, there was very few people that had knowledge about what the Soviet Union was about. Most of American population equated Soviet Union with Siberia, thinking about it's cold and there's bears walking on the street. So the bus driver picks us up, and he makes it extremely cold in the bus. He thinks that's probably our native habitat, and being the kind person he is. Now, it's August 22nd. We come from Italy. It's us and 3 other families, and none of us know how to say to bus driver, it's cold. So all of us sitting in the back of the bus, shivering, but just a terrible, terrible moment. And I said to myself, you know what? Speaking the language is probably the most important thing you could do. Prior to that, prior to refugee camp in Italy, we were in Austria. That was the first stop on the immigration tour. And for people who are born in America, you are so blessed to be born into this freedom. But on the other hand, you're also slightly deprived, because I remember my first day in Vienna, when you walk outside, you stand on the corner of the Danube River, you look outside. In Vienna, they have sort of a clock similar to Big Ben, and it rings. And that's my first memory of the freedom. And that's when you realize the freedom has a taste, and the freedom has a smell, and that moment, you feel the wings behind your back. There's nothing you can't do. The second moment like that was when we came off the bus in Philadelphia. Scary. We don't speak the language. We have $700 in our pockets. My parents are extremely nervous, and we have to start our life all over again. Well, the first 2 weeks in America, I did nothing but study English. And by the way, this lecture is not an easy lecture to give because what Helene and Dean Epps wanted me to talk about my history. So it's a little difficult. How do you tell your history without sound slightly braggadocious, but yet truthful? So I am trying to sort of, not to say me, but it's not an easy task, obviously. I'd rather talk about the cases and my clients than about me. But, well, anyway. So we start my life in America for 2 weeks studying English. And then, obviously, it's time to apply to school. My English is not good enough to go anywhere. I graduate high school in Russia. So I start Community College of Philadelphia, taking English as a second language. Hard. Sitting in a classroom with a dictionary, taking math courses because formula the same on every language. But I did it. It took 2 years, and eventually I transferred to Temple. Everything I am, everything I ever will be, I owe to Temple. My undergraduate was the greatest time of my life. Law school was better. But undergraduate was pretty good time. At that time, there was a lot of immigrants from the former Soviet Union because everybody was trying to leave before 1980 Olympics. Everybody knew the border will be closed, and we were lucky enough because of the Ludenberg Amendment, we were ready and able to leave. Not easy, and you have to surrender everything. You have to surrender every single one of your possessions. You have to surrender your citizenship. My visa to United States said stateless. So that's how you start your life. I worked my way through college and I worked my way through law school doing 2 jobs. I was waitressing in a pizza place from 6 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock in the morning shift. Then I would come to school and then I would go back, and I was lucky enough because I also work as a dental assistant. And the place where I work as a dental assistant was right next door to the place where was the pizza place. So people who would come as a customer to the pizza place knew sooner or later I'll be working on their teeth. So my tips were pretty good. So I did that for about 3 or 4 years, and then I did some other work. I was working for the law firm for a while. Eventually I graduated college, and at that time, you know, when I was selecting courses to go through college, there's not much I could have selected because the thought process was, what's the courses that I could take that will suit my major? I could take them quickly one after another so I can go to do my work and maximize my time at work, not maximizing my enjoyment of school. You know, I am now proud mother of 2 daughters, and they're choosing, which school I would want to go to and which courses I want to study. That luxury was not familiar to me. When I graduated from undergraduate, for a brief moment, I thought, maybe not going to Temple, maybe have a change of scenery. And then I said, no. In your own home, your walls are helpful. So you got to go back to Temple. And I went to Temple Law School. That was a greatest experience of my life. I see one of my professors here, Professor Ting. I want to recognize him. He was my professor for corporate taxation, and he was just wonderful. Everything I learned to practice law was probably from Temple. My first year at Temple, I also had Professor Weinstein. He's no longer teaches here. And he had this great expression. He said, you know what? Remember, it was 1985. That anybody can find the answers The issue is to find out what the right question is. And that was way, way before Google time. So he taught me that. We had Judge Klein here. I'm going to recognize him. He was my professor for trials. And I was lucky enough. And of course, Dean Epps. Her and I started at law school at the same time. I was her student in her first class. She was my criminal law professor, and boy, was she great. And she's still great, but that's how I got through law school. Now, we all have different reasons and different backgrounds why we became a lawyer. I think mine was to fight for people who could not fight for themselves. I probably very early on knew that the practice I want to have is a practice of personal injury, because there is voice that be needed to give into people who cannot speak for themselves. Very similar thing that what Ed Ross did. Ed Ross in 1992, for the first time, represented victims of the clergy abuse. If you think about it, fast forward now, unfortunately he didn't live long enough to see it, but the movie Spotlight is basically what Ed Ross stood for. People didn't believe a young men and women who complain about it, because we had a tendency to trust the authorities rather than question the authority. And Ed was able to give these people the voice. And that's what I think we as lawyers have responsibility to do. We're supposed to protect our people who cannot protect themselves. In my drawer in my office, there's always one document, and no matter how much Nina is trying to clean my desk, that document never gets moved, and that's the Constitution of the United States. I believe wholeheartedly that we the people is what makes our country is so great. When you look at the constitutions of other countries, it's mostly what government tells people their privileges are. Our Constitution is what we the people will tell government what they can and cannot do. I remember a speech by Ronald Reagan, who at the end of his 8 years in office, where he said, we the people are the driver, the government is the car, and we the people should tell the government how fast and at what direction the government should travel. And the lawyers is really the last resort to make sure that we the people are able to do that. So I became a lawyer, and I joined law practice, and it was fun, but I really wanted to be a litigator in my own right. I was a litigator with that firm very quickly. As a matter of fact, interesting story to tell. My first case for law students here, one thing I want to tell you, make sure you're not afraid of anything. If you're afraid, or if you think for whatever reason you can't do something, you won't be able to. But if you're not afraid and you think you can, you can. So my first case, the day after I passed the bar exam, and in old time, you didn't have to come in for swearing-in ceremony. You had to fill out the application, go in front of the notary signs the application, and you become a lawyer. So that's what happened. And prior to that, I worked for this firm, and there was a gentleman there who was a litigator, and I said to him, well, when am I going to go to court? When am I going to go to court? I want to see the courtroom. And he said to me, well, don't worry about when you pass the bar and you need to go to court, I will take you and I will show you around. Well, I walked into his office and I said, well, so-and-so, can I go to court now? I pass my bar exam. And he said, that's great. Where do you want to take the case? I have one case for tomorrow in Bucks County and one in Philadelphia. Which one are you going to try? And I said, I've never even been inside the courtroom. And I said, I don't even know where Bucks County is. He said, great, here's the file, take this, it's a Philadelphia case. To this day, I remember the name of the person, and I could tell you everything that happened in this case. And another good advice I could give to the lawyers, the most important thing in your life, at least in the very beginning, obviously what you learn in law school, but the second most important thing is to have a good secretary. And I had a wonderful, very experienced secretary, and she said to me, okay, we know you need to have opening, we know you need to have closing, and you know the facts of the case, so you will stay late after hours, and we'll prepare the case. And surely enough, we stayed late after the hours. We prepared a case. It was a slip and fall case, happened in the city of Philadelphia. And next day I meet the client an hour before, maybe an hour and a half before the arbitration. And I talk to the client. And surely enough, time to walk in. And I have no idea which table I'm supposed to sit in. So I waited for the defense attorney to come in. He walks in, sits down, and then I know obviously I have to take the opposite desk, and I am trying this case. And guess what? I won. And I won a very fair number for this woman. 20 years later, this woman came back, found me, and was again my client for the personal injury case. So obviously I didn't do so bad. And what I learned from being a litigator is everyone have the same facts. Pretty much, if you did your discovery and you talked to your client and you took a deposition of the other side, you have a reasonable set of facts that everybody's operating under. But what make one side win and another one lose? And by the way, I'm a big believer if there's two lawyers on each lawyer on each side, and they're both good lawyers, the truth will always come out in court. The jury will make the right decision. The judge will make the right decision. Somehow there is this miraculous concept of truth and fair compensation that if you have good lawyers on each side, the justice will always prevail. If you have one lawyer that's not so good, we're in an adversary system, and you have nobody to blame but yourself for selecting such a lawyer. Well, I practiced law, and nobody ever second chair with me. Eventually, 7 years later, Temple University again came to the rescue, because what Temple started is this LLM program. By the way, shout out to LLM program, because it's second rated in the United States, and it's a fantastic program. So I joined that program, and the requirement at that time were 7 years of experience, which I was a little bit short of, and 12 jury trials. And the best part about that program was that Philadelphia great plaintiffs and defense lawyers were teaching this program. I was unlucky enough to see the mock trial between Herb Cosby, who endowed one of the lectures here, and Bill O'Brien, who was a great defense attorney, trying the case against each other. And by the way, Herb took a defense side, and Bill O'Brien took plaintiff side. And Herb always said, there is a reason why juries dislike the lawyers, because they believe that as lawyer would walk into the courtroom and somehow miraculously they'll be switched, they'll be just effectively arguing the other side. Herb Cosby also had another great expression for the lawyers here is, in courtroom, the level playing field is only your second option. So, and actually, I'm going to tell you another quick joke about it, just sort of to lighten up a little bit, and not everything about me, is Judge Klein told me that joke, so I have to give attribution. You can't plagiarize. That's from, and by the way, Judge Klein is a son of the building. The Klein Law School is named after his father. So the way the joke goes is this lawyer's meeting with a client and tells the client, you know what, I don't think this case is really good case, and I think we're going to lose a trial. And the client says to him, well, maybe we should send a fruit basket to a judge. And the lawyer says, no, it's a really terrible idea. The judge is going to get angry at us, and not under no circumstances you to do that. Well, the trial day comes, they go to court, they're trying the case. The case goes in worse than they expected. And somehow, at the end, the judge gives the decision for this client. They walk out of the courtroom, and the lawyer looks at the client. He says, I don't know what just happened. We won. And the client says, well, maybe it's because the basket I sent. He goes, I told you not to do it. Why in the world would you not listen to me? He said, well, I listened to you. I sent the basket, but I signed another person's name to it. So you have to think about, if there is such a word as lawyering, that's what's important. I think the evidence are the same for both parties, but marshalling as evidence is what separates one lawyer from another. And I think when you are trying a jury case, you have to give a part of you to your client and give some of your credibility to the client and to your case. Their reputation is one of the most important things that lawyers have, and it takes years to earn it. But you know what? At the end of the day, the most important thing is a client. And when today Joanne said, well, Marina is a great family person, I will tell you that I always put interest of my clients above my family. I think my daughters here will say, if she needs me for something and my client needs me for something, most likely I will be there for my client. And Helene shaking her head, she understands. Ed did the same thing when he was practicing law, saying, truly be a good lawyer. You need to truly think of one thing, what's in the best interest of your client. Well, at some point I decided that I want to start my law firm. And the best thing I've done when I started my law firm is to hire great people. Some of them are here today. Some of them could not make it because we do have clients that we serve. But when I started the law firm, I decided to do it completely differently. Most of the law firm, you will join most of the law firm in the city of Philadelphia, a law firm that is task-oriented. In Pennsylvania, we're not allowed to specialize, we're allowed to have concentration. So what happens is you have a concentration in criminal, you have a concentration in family law, but there is really few law firms that still do general practice. I call it, we're country bumpkins. I like that fact that when client walks into my office, basically it doesn't matter what his problem is, most of the time we're able to help because we have enough lawyers in my office that could help with whatever issue it is. And, I said, we have a client for life. You walk into my office because you have a car accident and later on you want to get married. We have somebody who could prepare prenuptial. And later on you want to get divorced. We have somebody who could do that. And later on you want to get a foreign bride. We have somebody who could do that. We are really full-service law firm. And another thing what I did that's different from most of the law firm is we have an amazing law firms in the city who specializing in a big case. So if you have a case under $1 million, they're just not going to take your case. We have plenty of law firms that do smaller cases. However, they do not have the same quality nor the ability to represent people when they have this $1 million case. What I decided to do is, when I start my law firm, it's going to be the same lawyers. It might not be the most practical thing, and it might not be the most economically feasible thing, but the same lawyers who will handle a multi-million-dollar case will handle a $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 case, because for each client, their case is just as important, whether it is a multi-million-dollar case or it is, a the $5,000 dog bite case. Clients need the representation. Clients need to know that they are in the best hands. And another, I like cliches. And another good expression that I like is, client does not care how much lawyer knows. Clients wants to know how much lawyer cares. And that's what I think the most important thing. When clients come through our doors, one thing that I want to make sure that we do display that level of care. In 2008, I decided that, giving an individual clients and representing clients is a great thing, but I think I could do more. And with encouragement of Arlen Spector, may he rest in peace, I was asked to run for U.S. Congress. And Joanne already mentioned I was first immigrant from the former Soviet Union to run for Congress, and I was first Ukrainian-born to run for Congress. Well, I was debating whether, you should say that in public, but, and it might be a little shocking, but I tell you, running for Congress, it's like going to proctologist, gynecologist, and dentist all at the same time. But knowing then what I know now, I still would have done it. I did it, 108,853 people voted for me, who's counting. But it wasn't enough to win, but it was an amazing experience. It taught you patience, it taught you understanding, and it gave you a more sympathy even to other people and more desire to help. I encourage everyone to take take a part in political process. It's absolutely incredible thing. As a matter of fact, I was going to start this speech with, 4.7 years later, but I figured that's a little bit too much of attribution. Well, I am now representing people that are injured in a variety of matters. I have not done clergy abuse cases because they are just so heart-wrenching, and my head goes off to Ed for starting that and to many other people. We do a lot of concussion cases, and lucky for us, there's a movie made for us too. There's a great movie, it was just released, 3-4 months ago, Concussion. And again, when we started, and Nina remembers that it was 1992 or 1993 when we did our first concussion case. Nobody knew what it was. We called it organic brain injury cases, but you could tell there is an absolutely normal person that gets in a car accident, and all of a sudden there's a personality changes. There is this, it's not Alzheimer's because nobody diagnosing them with that, but they have this memory loss, and everybody's just attributing that, nothing really happened, it's just age or this and that. Our first case was a young boy who was backseat passenger in his mother's car, and the car collided with another vehicle, and that 14-year-old boy all of a sudden became a monster. And nobody could give an explanation about what happened to him. Well, we believed at that time, and science proved us right later on, but that's exactly what it was. It was a concussion that caused him a personality change. And we handled this case, and actually one of the consultants on this case was another professor at Temple Law School who worked for my firm for a while, Anthony Bacchino. So shout out to Anthony. He's no longer also teaches in school, but we spent countless hours preparing for that trial. We tried that case in Bucks County, and we got a very good decision. I never always say a great one because I always believe it's fair. Whatever number it is that we get, hopefully, will always be a fair number. It's a right compensation for our client. And from that point on, we had different law firms referring us brain injury cases, and we've handled them for many, many years. I think that you should never give up on whatever matter you're representing client on. You should believe in your client. You should research it. When your client tells you something that just doesn't sit well with you, I think you should research it. I think you should spend time on it. And I definitely think at the end, the justice will come in a courtroom. The other interesting case that we had was, again, a brain injury case. It was 2014. It was in Verdict magazine. I don't know if some lawyers saw it. I'm still willing, since it's a published opinion, I probably could tell the names of the clients, but I prefer never give the name of our clients. But it was a woman. Again, if you think about it, both sides have the same evidence. Somehow the case cannot be resolved amicably, and you have to try the case. And that case was a woman who slipped and fell at the hotel bathroom. It was unobserved, slip and fall, but and she hit her head. And, you know, the people who represented the hotel didn't want to be reasonable about it, so we had to get the case really prepared, and we had a very good experts. And eventually, the case obviously got resolved. It went through mediation and went through arbitration in front of a very capable former Supreme Court judge, and the case got resolved for, again, a fair number. It's in the Verdict magazine, so you know if it's under $1 million, they don't publish it. So just, but that, you know, that's not what it is. I am a big believer that you have to give back. You have to give back from the day one. You have to remember the institutions, the professors that made you who you are. Temple made me who I am. I was the youngest member of the Centennial Society here at Temple. The second oldest member was a gentleman who was 20 years older than me. And I made a pledge, not knowing exactly how I'm going to fulfill this pledge, but I did. And another great accomplishment that I did for Temple, and I feel very, very good about it, is on the 5th floor, there was a room when I used to study with my classmates, class of '88, which was the best class. It still is the best class. We still remain friendly. One of my closest friends from that class is Stephanie Boinski, who is now a dean of University of Georgia School of Public Affairs. She was on law review and she got all A's. I didn't get all A's in the law school. And I was very proud of Stephanie, and we studied in that classroom. And somebody said to me, "Do you think Stephanie is that much smarter than you are?" I said, "No, but Stephanie spends more time studying than I do awake." She was... Well, we studied in that classroom, so when finally I started working and I got some good numbers on our cases, we dedicated the room on the 5th floor. So for you law students, when you walk out and you look, the first room on the left is our room. That's the room we're studying. That room was lucky for us. Well, to this day, we are all remain friends, and we keep up with each other, and we still like each other. I think the bonds that's created in law school definitely last you through the lifetime. I think I'm probably over my time. I am. I want to thank everyone for coming again. I want to thank Joanne. I want to, from the bottom of my heart, thank Helena, because that's a God's work to have those kind of lectures and enlighten the law student and tell everybody, listen, if the little girl from Ukraine can do it, you can do it too.